Donut Bag is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Your data is your business. Protect it with ExpressVPN. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to the link listed in my Twitter profile. All right. So the big news is Geno's back. Geno's back and you're gonna be in trouble. Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to sing. But is this a good thing that Geno's back?
Well, last night, yes.
That was going to be my response.
I mean, the thing with Geno is he's good when he wants to be good, and he's been out for so long, so it was guaranteed that he was going to come out last night, guns blazing, getting 2 goals didn't surprise me at all. You know, he was fierce. This is the player we need to see him play night after night after night. Whether that he'll maintain that, I'd like to see that, but I'm not hopeful because I know from his past, you know, he seems to he gets comfortable, you know, and he only does so much. But I am hopeful. I mean, Sullivan's got a big job ahead of him when, you know, we've got our healthy players coming back and how he's going to, you know, line up the team properly and utilize his players properly. But you know what? Last night was good. Geno was good. If he can keep that, you know, style of play, that level of play, then, you know, he can stay. So for now, he can stay.
The only thing I have to add to that is he was like a little kid with built up energy who hasn't been able to do anything in months.
Yeah.
So he has come in. We're not at the halfway point, are we?
No.
No. Almost.
No. Here, I'll tell you. It is. It's funny. I have Boston, Montreal on my TV here too.
My point is
we're at game 30. We're going to game 36.
Yeah, 30.
Oh, so we're not even halfway. We're not close to halfway. Okay. Well, we're sort of close to halfway. My point is maybe him only playing a little over half a season will help. You know, that he doesn't have to play the full season, so maybe he won't get into those bad habits.
Well, I don't, you know, hopefully it helps with the bad habits. It'll definitely help with his energy levels because as we've seen, you know, the past few seasons, that's been a big concern with him is he's been unable to maintain that energy for a full 82 game season. So the fact that he came in game 35 instead of game 1, you know, that should help him for a postseason run, you know, but that being said, you know, Ashley can do math here. 47 games is still long enough to build bad habits. So he needs to, you know, remember how last night happened and just feed off that.
Yeah, he needs to build on that. Like last night wasn't good enough. I need to do better. He's got to have that attitude. And it kind of plays off onto kind of the Penguins overall and how they give up 2-0 leads to lose. Dallas, for example. That's got to have that same mentality. Like I played well. I had 2 goals. It was what I wanted to see for myself, but it wasn't good enough, you know? So going back to like the Dallas thing where you lose your lead, you got to play like you're losing through the whole game, even when you have a lead, you know what I mean? So Malkin has to kind of decide that I want to be better than my last game and better than my last game. And that's the only way we'll see the best out of Geno.
Yeah, it's
like the St. Louis game and not the Dallas game.
Yeah. It's not the offense I'm worried about. It's the unnecessary penalties. It's the not playing the system. That's what worries me.
Well, I think there's still a big lack of communication and disconnection on the ice. For the most part, the players that they come together, they gel okay, but they're still not communicating to the level that they should be. And I think that they need to be playing under one mentality, one brain. It's not, you know, each player has a different job, but when you're on the ice, it's collective. It's to score a goal and prevent goals. And they need to kind of communicate with one another so that they can come into that like one mega brain. It's like one, you know, there's an extension of 5 players operating, but from one, you know, mainframe.
So who were they missing from last night? They're missing Rust, McGinn, Heinen,
Tucker,
DeSmith.
Zucker, and DeSmith and Zach Aston Reese.
Yep.
So, okay, assuming everybody gets healthy, what are these lines going to look like?
I'll let Jen take that one.
What?
I mean, I've been kind of working with it a little bit. I like Rodriguez on Sydney's wing. I really do. I don't think we need to take that away. I see, this is the difficult part because Carter, here I go, Carter. Oh, Carter. Carter has been one of our best players since he came to Pittsburgh. He's been consistent.
I know that's very hard for you to say.
I know, I'm like joking a little bit here. He's been consistent. He's been a good teammate. He's made very little mistakes, and when he does, he makes up for them like tenfold. As for the lineups, like, I mean, is Sullivan going to demote Rust? Do you move Kapanen from Geno's wing? Does Carter move to third line center?
Yes.
And you put Zucker back on Geno's wing? Is that line going to work? Zucker's Geno Kapanen, and is Rust going to be okay going down to Carter's wing? Like, it's a big, it's a big. You know what? I know Sullivan's going to try different things, and if they don't work, he's going to stick with it until someone suggests otherwise. But it's too soon. It's too soon to say because Geno's just back. So personally, I need to see him play a few more games. If, like I said before,
and everyone needs to get healthy.
Yeah, we need to have. You can't base a lineup off one game. You need 5 at least of the same.
I also really like Rodriguez on that first line.
I
kind of reminds me of back
plays.
when it kind of reminds me of back when Connor Sherry first came up from Wilkes-Barre. He has a very similar energy to what Sherry brought to Crosby's line back in 15-16.
It's so rare to see someone on this team actually shoot the puck and not, try 8,000 passes or whatever. I mean, Rodriguez is just gripping and ripping, and I love it.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, he's already set his personal best in goals, correct?
Probably.
19.
And I want to say even points he has as well, because you figure he was in Buffalo. I want to say when I was watching the broadcast on Saturday, the announcers commented on that. So here's my one thing too, because all 3 of us on this podcast can agree that we have painful memories of Jeff Carter wearing a different sweater. Okay. For you and I, Joe's the Flyers, of course. And actually for me, the first year I lived in Columbus, he was in Columbus for a hot minute, and that was just so yeah, it's awkward for me. So, but that being said, I think one thing I've been grappling with personally is it is difficult to take away ice time from him.
You can't.
No,
he's too good.
You have to give the ice time to the players working the hard and producing the most. Period.
And 77 is showing up every single game.
Yep.
Well, okay. So let's work on the second line first. We got Malkin, Kapanen. Those two have to be together. And I believe Kapanen had one of his best games last night with Malkin. So they needed to be together. But then I guess you put Zucker on that left wing, which I really don't even want him on the team. I don't maybe trade him for a backup goalie. I don't know.
There's a trade deadline coming up that I was reminded of while watching NHL Network earlier when they were talking about our old friend Phil Kessel. And I'm like, oh no, what are you doing to me? So yeah, remember that anything that we talk about tonight are short-term fixes, because February will be here before you know it.
Yeah. It can take its time though. It really can.
Is that when the trade deadline is?
It's the 21st.
Yeah, it is
February 21st.
I'm guessing. It is?
Well, hold on. No,
no,
I was just guessing. I don't even know.
I think it's March 21st.
Is it after the quote Olympic break that is now the makeup time?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm
Because
not sure what's going on. So
because I know the Olympic break starts on my birthday.
yeah, the trade
opening
deadline
games is my birthday.
the trade deadline is March 21st.
March 21st. March 21st.
I got
Now,
the day right. I just got the
because the last day of the regular season is not until April 29th, and that's as everything stands right now.
But we're still seeing postponed games.
My coworker made the joke to me yesterday that so I'm due sometime in June, and he's like, your kid could be born and we would still be in the regular season. I'm like, thanks for reminding me of that.
Do you know if it's a boy or girl?
I do.
Do we know? Is it?
It's not a secret. Is it going to be
Steven Stamkos or is it going to be Stephanie Stamkos?
Actually, there's no hockey player involved in the name of my child, to be quite honest. He is going to be named after my late father-in-law.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And then his middle name is going to be Kucherov. After a baseball player. No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's Woodford's nickname. No. Because Woodford acts like Nikita Kucherov. The good, the bad, and the ugly. No. The middle name will be because we met at a baseball game, and then both of my parents and my late father-in-law were all big baseball fans. So the middle name will be after a baseball player.
Okay.
Mookie.
We do have a name. We do have a name, but there are family members who do not know the name, so I'm not saying it.
Okay. So I guess. Okay. So basically everything is like delayed a month as opposed to when it's usually the trade deadline is in like late February,
end of February,
and the playoffs start in April. But now it looks like the playoffs are going to start in May, so it's just delayed a month. So okay,
I mean, we've seen that in the past with the Olympic breaks, pushing everything back a little bit. But I'm wondering if part of it was because of the pandemic. Like kind of just
everything's all goofed up.
Yeah, from my understanding, that will now be the makeup.
For now, it's Zucker is still on the team, and I guess you put him on that second line, grown. But then that third line.
So who else do you put on there?
Yeah. I mean, Carter was on that. Carter was there, but he's your third line center. He has to be the center. So, I don't know what else you could. Maybe Heinen.
Oh, I forgot about him.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
I'd like to see
Heinen up there,
but I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know if it'll happen, but it's a possibility.
Then, okay, so the fourth line is going to be Bluger, Zach Aston Reese, and McGinn, which is a darn good fourth line.
Yeah, I wouldn't just touch that.
But then what your third line is Carter, Heinen, and Rust. Yeah.
Yeah. So you leave Boyle out,
or it'll be Rodriguez.
Either Rust or Rodriguez. I think they'll flip back and forth.
I think it's going to come down to who Sydney and who Geno want to play with. I think Sullivan always goes to them to say, who do you feel comfortable with? Like he's always asked, like he's always, staying informed with the players. It is them out on the ice. I'm sure he pulls rank once in a while, but for the most part, it's who they want to play with.
Well,
and if it doesn't work, then Sullivan says, it's not working. We saw that with Kessel. Kessel got demoted to the third line from Geno's wing. So I'm not going to be surprised if we see it go Jake, Sydney, Rust. And I will be very disappointed because, Rust can still produce. It doesn't really matter what line he's on. But, you demote a player from first line to third line, it may hinder their game.
Okay. But here's my question. Okay. So you got on paper, when everybody's healthy, you got a really strong, deep team. your fourth line is Bluger, Zach Aston Reese, and McGinn, which is really strong. My question is playing time. Sid's gonna get his minutes. Geno's line's gonna get his minutes. What are Carter's lines and the Bluger line gonna do?
What Sullivan's gonna play the lines that produce the most. That's how you win games. Like I've noticed. I don't know what game it was, but I noticed Sydney's minutes were a little bit down. I mean, he had no points, 0 points on the night. So I mean, a good coach. Not to say Sullivan isn't a good coach, but a good coach utilizes his roster, his bench to its best, the best it can be. You play what works. And if you have one line, whether that be your first or second line, and they're not producing, you're going to cut them a little bit and shake them up a little bit and let that third and fourth line play and produce and be like, see what you're missing? There's different tactics, but you can't just keep running the same thing if it's not working. I mean, last night, for example, Sydney had 0 points, right? He was great on the face-off, but our predominant producing line was the second line, if I'm not mistaken.
I disagree. I think Sydney's going to get his minutes, and so is Geno.
They're still going to get their minutes, but it could be 16 minutes versus 18 minutes,
which is fine, which is ideal. That's what I want. That's the cliche of roll 4 lines. In this scenario, you can roll 4 lines and be really effective, but we'll see.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be a wait and see approach. I think it's going to be the one thing that's great about this Penguins team that, I personally haven't seen from them in the past few seasons is they're going back to that next man up mentality, right? We haven't, I know Jen was talking about communication issues, and yes, that's evident, but they're at least playing with this type of energy that we feel that we've all agreed on this podcast that they've been missing the past few seasons. So they'll figure themselves out.
I don't think they're consistent enough. I mean, the last 2 games
they're not.
Good. Was it the last 2 games or the last game and the game before?
It was the 3 out of the 4 because they were down against St. Louis and then came back and won late. And then they dominated Philly. Dallas, they had the 2-goal lead and blew it. And they were and wound up losing 3-2. And then last night.
And Dallas is good. So, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas is good. But, I mean, what was concerning to me was in the third period, it was evident in the second period, but especially in the third period, they were playing on their heels.
I don't think that
was like they scored those 2 goals. They literally did what St. Louis did a couple nights before against them was, they got the 2-goal lead early and they're like, okay, we're done. We're fine. And just kind of coasted the rest of the game. And then, they're like, oh, and then, they panned to them when Dallas scored the winning goal. And I'm like, why are you guys surprised? You guys haven't played the last 40 minutes. Like, relax.
Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating when you're dominating and don't score, and and then nothing shows for it. So I stand correct. I mean, at least record wise, the Stars are not doing that great. They're actually toward the bottom of the Central Division. So
the Stars are a weird team, though. You got to remember they had that 4-goalie conundrum in the beginning of the season, which they have finally figured out. So I mean, they're rolling with the kid in net. So but I mean, Dallas is still talented, but like St. Louis, that's a possible cup contender. Anaheim, I don't think is a cup contender this year, but I mean, I think in a couple of years they could be if they continue on their trajectory. So, I mean, I would say, the Penguins, their past 10 to 15 games have been impressive in that sense, that they're hanging with the big boys, so to speak.
Here's what I hear.
Like Jen said, there's still something missing.
What's missing?
Goaltender.
Not the goaltender. Wait, that the goaltender is the Jarry is you said backup goaltender. I'm sorry. They need
We need a goalie in case
they
of,
need to move away from DeSmith. But Jarry is, I mean, they're talking. Does he have the lowest goals against average right now? I think it's under 2.
I don't know. I don't have this information.
I believe. I mean, here's the things I hear. Jarry for Vezina, and all of a sudden the Penguins are crazy deep, and this is one of their best teams in years.
Says who?
Twitter. But I mean, other, real people.
I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore.
The Pens go on a winning streak and Twitter loses their mind, and they're so good. They lose 2 games. It's like, trade this person, like Pens Twitter. You don't listen to them.
I don't miss Twitter.
Yeah, but
because like I had such a love-hate relationship with hockey Twitter. So I'm so glad I'm away from that. I mean, I will say this. This has definitely been one of the more consistent Penguins teams since their back-to-back run. There is no question about that. I still firmly believe, I still stand by my comments I've made since the beginning of the season, that I don't care about what happens right now. I want to see you down the stretch. If you don't play well down the stretch in March and April, you're not winning in May and June.
I don't want to see them burn out either.
That's my point is if you these they're known for having these win streaks mid-season and then they amount to nothing.
It's got to be a slow build. Another thing.
So like when I was watching the game on NHL Network on Saturday, they were talking about all the historic winning streaks. Well, they've all been mid-season and nothing happened. I think the 1 year, no. I mean, all those years they fell flat on their faces in the playoffs, so it didn't even matter. So okay. I want to see them post-trade deadline keep this up.
They fell flat in their face last year solely because of Jarry, but Jarry seems to be back on track.
That's the thing I'm worried about. I don't want to see Jarry burn out too soon.
Yeah.
And this is what happens with goalies is they play so hard during regular season that they just don't have it in the tank. And now we don't have really a reliable backup goalie. I'm sorry, Casey, but we don't. And that could change. I mean,
I was at the Sharks game on January 2nd. I think the Penguins went up to like a 5-0 lead or 5-1 lead or something like that, and almost lost that game solely because of DeSmith. Enough. Get out of here. Go, Casey. Go.
I didn't watch that game. I couldn't watch that. I can't. It's too painful.
I watched a little bit of it, and I'm just like, okay, San Jose's not that good.
They're not.
And you're letting them hang around.
Oh,
like talk about a dumpster fire. I'm like, you're letting a literal dumpster fire of an NHL team hang around like this on your home ice. Come on.
Yeah, that was that game reminded me like of the 80s. I mean, the 8-5 is that's fire wagon hockey right there.
For sure.
But hey, beating the Ducks decisively last night, that's impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see if they could do it against the Kings, who actually are good this year. Holy crap.
Yeah, the Kings have a lot. The Kings are like the Ducks, where they've been drafting well the past couple of years. They've got a lot of young talent. They're riding with a really young goalie. I mean, they still have Jonathan Quick, but they've also got, I want to say his name's Peterson. And I mean, they still have Kopitar and they still have Dustin Brown and some of those old guys, but they've had a lot of young kids come up the past couple years. So, yeah, I don't know if they're as close as Anaheim is, because Anaheim's been a very, very slow build, talking back to like when they drafted John Gibson, but LA is definitely on the right track. They're not a pushover.
Okay. So yeah, we're not even halfway through, but hey, compared to where the Penguins started, they're looking really good now, and 3 points out of first place in the Metro. That's impressive.
Oh, for sure. Especially with how hot Carolina's been lately too.
Carolina,
I think going into the other night, they were 9-1 in their last 10.
Yeah, they're sick.
And,
Hey, guess who else is 9-1 in their last 10? The Pittsburgh Penguins.
But the difference between Carolina and Pittsburgh, though, is Carolina tends to wait until January to start showing up.
Yeah.
Historically speaking, especially under Brindamore.
Well, we say the same thing almost every year. It's like, oh my God, all those injuries. Oh, look, they're playing well with the injuries. Then everybody comes back and then things don't go so well.
This team, the Pittsburgh Penguins, play better under adversity. They always do. They rise up. They have something to prove. But when they have that full team, collective team, it's like, what do we do, guys? Like, I forget how to hockey. And it's so frustrating because it comes down to that chemistry. And it's like, where did it go? You find this chemistry when you're dealing with, injuries and in this case, COVID protocols, but now you've got your full crew. Like, you should be even more intimidating. You should be, the team you fear to beat. I don't think Pittsburgh's the team people fear or other teams fear just yet, because they do know their weaknesses, but Pittsburgh doesn't seem to know how to play. So, and this is going back the last couple of years, obviously not when they were on their cup runs, but they don't know how to play to their highest potential when they're healthy. It seems like they forget what they're doing, and they kind of fall apart. And we see it in the playoffs every year for the last so many years.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and the Penguins have been like that for years and years and years. It's not even just like the past 5 years with the, back-to-back cup runs. When I started watching them in the mid to late 2000s, with Fleury and Crosby and Malkin, all them just coming up, they were the same way then. It was like, okay, somebody's hurt, next man's up. But yet they would have a full roster. It's like, oh, well, what are we doing?
But I am going to say this, based off my last thought of playing through adversity, and having something to prove. We do have 3 core players that want to stay together and win another cup or more cups. That is something to prove. These are 3 aging players that are not in their prime anymore. They're not as fast as the younger kids that are coming up, but they have something to prove. So I still have a lot of faith in this team. Ability to come together and win the games that need to be done. And it just really comes down to the personal will from those 3 players. And those 3 players, of course, being Malkin, Letang, and Sidney, right? So
who just broke a record of
17 years or something.
Yeah, or I think 16 years together, which is 16. The most of any 16? Trio of players. But to that point, and we've said this almost every year for like the past 5 years, how many more years do they have left? I mean, my goodness, that Ben Roethlisberger has played for 18 years, and he looks like he's 100 years old, and he's about to fall over and die.
Fall apart.
Yeah,
yeah, he does. He's looked like that for 3 years.
It's like, and I'm not saying, I mean, who knows how long they're going to play, but who knows how long each of them are going to play? None of them are young.
Well, I know for sure 2 of them want to play, for a while.
Two of them want to play for a while.
I can tell you this, that one of them looks like he has another spring in his step that we haven't seen in a few years.
The other thing you have to consider,
and that would be Chris Letang.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be Letang. He's yeah.
I have no complaints about Letang. He had a little bit of a slump a couple years ago.
I think that was based on the injury and the surgery he had, and just the fear of being hurt again, and it limited him from playing. He stayed in that box that easy basic box. But then when he overcame that fear, he's like, screw it. And we saw it with Sydney when he came back from his surgery and then his COVID. He was playing really shallow hockey. It was really like, what are you doing? Right. And now we're seeing him come out of his bubble a little bit more. There's still a little bit of fear there. You see it. He judges himself. He holds back. He passes when he should shoot. There's still a little bit of fear that, but he's overcoming that. But with Letang, he was scared. He was playing scared hockey, and it affected his game so bad that we were all sitting there going like, oh, he's washed up. He's done. But that fear subsided. And now we're seeing this resurgence of insurgents. There it is.
Resurgence.
Thank you. Of Chris Letang and him playing, you can't count out an old player. A veteran player, if they stay in shape, they can just be just as good. Isn't Tom Brady another long football? Like he's old, he's like 40s, and he looks like
Tom Brady's also on like a crazy person diet.
Yeah, but you know what? If you take care of yourself, you can go as long as your body allows you to. So you keep your body strong and you keep your mind strong and you find that passion and maintain that passion. There is no age. There's no age. Who was it? Didn't Gordie Howe play till he was 52?
Yeah.
Well,
and
Kevin
he could have
Weeks,
played longer.
So Kevin Weeks made some good points about Chris Letang during Saturday's broadcast. With Todd Reardon coming back and coaching the defense, he attributed the success, Letang's resurgence directly to Todd Reardon, because Todd Reardon seems to be the only coach who has like really figured out Letang's sweet spots.
He's the Letang whisperer.
That's exactly what Kevin
and
Weeks
I
said.
think you could attribute Tristan Jarry's resurgence to the new goaltender coach, Kyoto.
And I'm pissed off about that. Why isn't he working with Casey? We talked about this before. Casey's been good. Casey's had good games. Casey's been a good goaltender, but he's lost his mojo. Why aren't we worried about, building him up? Jarry's there. We got him there. Now let's focus on the other back end of our goaltending tandem. Like why are we just kind of leaving him? Like I see Casey in net and I see like the fear of God in his eyes. Like he's lost his swagger. Now, granted, he's never been that great, the great back or goaltender, but he was a solid backup tender. And now he's just crumbled and it's like he's not getting the love. He's not being handled properly. And I feel bad for him. I think he's being hung out to dry and he's losing faith in himself. And we see that in his performances.
I would much rather have the number one goalie be right. If that was my choice of fixing the number one guy.
But we fixed him. He's fixed.
No, but the point Jen's trying to make is why should there be a choice?
Exactly. You've got two goaltenders you want to have,
Here's my theory.
We watched Murray fall apart. Like
coaches in any sport can do one of three things: help, hurt, or do nothing with a player. And I think in this case, a new coach has helped Jarry, hurt DeSmith, and that's just the way it is. The previous coach,
though. That's a bad coach, dude. A good coach considers every single person on his bench as the most important player on the team. And
correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Chiodo work with both Jarry and DeSmith and Wilkes-Barre?
I'd assume so, yeah.
I would think so, yeah.
So that's what's really interesting to me is like we know that Chiodo has a long history with the organization, both as a player and now as a coach. I think I'm gonna have to go on mute. So that's the interesting thing is like what changed between them.
One's getting love and the other's not. When you feel like your team is kind of left you, like forgotten about you, you start to lose faith in yourself. And once, like I've said this over and over again, hockey is very mental. It's a very mental game. And once you get into your head, everything else kind of falls apart. And it's like we saw it with Murray. Murray was phenomenal. What happened to him? Right?
You did happen in that Murray
anymore.
I'm sorry.
So that he was released by Ottawa, was he not?
Yeah.
Then he was recalled when they went to COVID.
He is just falling apart. He's just don't know.
No, he's officially AHL, I believe.
Yeah, I believe he's in the minors.
He was called
up. From what I'm seeing. He was called up, yeah.
But that's like, isn't he like $6 million?
something like
you
that.
want to work with that, you know. But going back to our team, whether you're going to be shopping Casey, I mean, you want to shop a goaltender that you're going to get something back in return, right? You don't want to just be like, oh, we've got dead weight. You work with every player on your bench as much as they need. And I mean, like for me as a coach in multiple sports, baseball, paddling, and hockey, like I find my weakest, you're only as good as your weakest link, right? It goes without saying. I look at my weakest links and I work more with them, right? I work harder with them because I want them to feel like they are valued on the team. And I don't think Casey feels valued, and it's just not working out for him.
Yeah,
so,
but how do you put him out here? How do you put him out there when he sucks?
because you have, well, what else do you do?
You got to win games.
Who else do you have?
Who else do you have?
Domingue?
Well, he'd have to be called up.
Yeah.
Well,
We're not
Domingue
running
was just called up because of COVID.
That's because Casey's on COVID, right? But I mean, we only run the two goalie bench. So what do? You can't burn out Jarry. We don't want to see Jarry get hurt, or there goes our chances in the playoffs, right?
I mean, Domingue has a history of filling in when, a starter went down. I mean, he did it back in 17-18 here in Tampa. So he's been in that spot where he's, had to fill in before. But here's my question. I believe Domingue is on a 2-way contract. What is DeSmith's contract situation? Is he a 2-way, or would he have to be put on waivers?
I highly doubt it's 2-way. I think it's 1-way.
I thought it was 1-way just because of how long he's been with the team.
You know what? Because I'll bet if it was 2-way, he would have been down already and they would have brought up Domingue.
Probably. And I think that's part of the problem is the contract situation.
I Googled what Casey DeSmith's, I shouldn't be laughing, what Casey DeSmith's contract is. And one of the things that comes up is what happened to Casey DeSmith.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Oh, that was a good shock plus yawn because, sorry, I'm not bored. I'm tired 24/7.
Did you know that Casey DeSmith holds the Penguins record for the most saves in a playoff game? In the AHL?
Oh, in the AHL. I was going to say, I didn't even know.
I was going to say,
wait. I might have read that wrong. Hold on. He holds the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins record for most saves in a playoff game.
I was going to say the Pittsburgh one is Hedberg, isn't it?
I don't know.
But yeah, there it goes. They have a confident goalie right there. And he's been left. I don't know. I just don't think the history from what I've seen with how Coach Sullivan and staff has treated our backup goaltenders hasn't been favorable.
Well,
no.
We'll see. We'll see what happens there.
Sorry, I have allergies too. Whew. But
I got the sniffles too. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's it then. Anything else?
I do want to say one more thing. With regards to blocking shots, I have a big problem with blocking shots when we're up 3 or more goals in a game and risking the chance of getting hurt, especially our star players. I'm thinking about one specifically. He wears the C. He had 3 last night. One almost hurt his foot. Don't do that. Okay, playoffs, do that. If it's
how do you
wild card game, if it's really neat, just don't do it. We don't need the injuries. Just
is that something you could turn off though? Is that something you could say, okay, guys, let's stop?
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. Was like, how do you flip the switch?
You just stop. It's reckless. It's playing reckless hockey. It's not thinking about long term. And in the first half of the season game where you're 3 goals ahead and there's like 3 minutes left on the clock for the game, don't do it. Risking injury. I don't need a broken foot. You don't need a broken foot. We don't need you having a broken foot. So stop that. Thanks. Now I'm done.
But then if somebody gets a broken foot, they'll have that adversity and then they'll be good again.
Yeah, but we don't need the captain out. So just stop it. Let someone else do it. You don't have to do it. That's it. I was screaming at my TV last night. I'm like, what are you doing? Because you could see he was in pain. And I'm like, ugh. And then I wrote down a whole bunch of notes and I'm screaming. They were all caps. And then I'm like, I'll just save it for the podcast. Just don't do that. Please save it. Like, yes, block shots when it's meaningful. But you know, it's what was it, 4-1 or 3-1 with minutes left in the game. Don't risk it. It's reckless. It's like reckless driving. That's reckless hockey. So that's it.
Fair enough.
On that note, let's real quick. Let's try to guess the next 10 games.
Okay, let me bring up the schedule.
Oh yeah, I got to say I gotta get the schedule out, which I have.
And I want to write it down.
So let's see.
We got Kings Sharks
Tonight's the Kings.
Correct.
Tomorrow night.
No, yeah, tomorrow night at 10:30.
Tomorrow night's the Kings.
So, I got it. So
I'm gonna say that's a win.
Yeah. Kings, Sharks, Vegas, and then they come back. Ottawa, so 4, in Columbus, 5, home against, and then they finish at home, Winnipeg, Arizona, Seattle, Detroit, LA. You know what? I'm gonna go a little bold here, and I'm gonna say 7-3.
I'm gonna say 8-2.
I was leaning towards 8-2, but I feel like the Ottawa game's a trap game.
Always.
Okay, so hold on. So Kings.
It's always a trap game.
Okay, so Joe says 8-2.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we don't worry about the overtime. We'll just count the loss.
No, I'm saying 7-3.
Okay, so Ash is saying 7-3, and I still haven't looked at so the Kings will lose, the Sharks will win, Vegas will lose, Ottawa will win, Colorado will lose. I'm going 6-4.
I think 6-4 could happen, but I'm saying 7-3. Like I said, I think Ottawa's a trap. I think there are trap teams.
Just to be clear, we're not a loss is a loss, whether it's an overtime or regular.
Correct.
So that's just good.
Yeah. Loss is a
No,
loss.
I do want to add the caveat. I think there are a few trap games in there.
Well, I mean, we watch us lose Ottawa or something, or the Sharks even at home.
That's what I'm saying.
You know?
Like I think, on paper, it should be, quote, an easy schedule, but especially since it's very home ice friendly. But there are, like, Columbus, for example, is a very unpredictable team right now. You never know which team you're getting that night. Ottawa
is Eichel going to be back for the game? Because I heard he's close.
He might be.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
I'm excited to see that.
Vegas is already a nasty team, top to bottom as this. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, that's going to be scary.
Yeah, Vegas is loaded. Oh. But I mean, Seattle. But then you have Seattle. Seattle's just like Ron Francis can't even justify what he did. He did this extensive. He did this extensive interview with ESPN about a week ago. And I'm going to be honest, it's like I was looking for him to justify his draft picks because he made some very questionable picks in the expansion draft. And like I'm like, Ron, what are you saying, dude?
But it's an expansion team. This is what you're supposed. An expansion team is supposed to suck in their first year.
And that's the thing that was really interesting with ESPN's angle is I'm like, Vegas is an anomaly. The way Columbus came out, the way Atlanta came out, the way Minnesota, the way these other expansion teams have come out are
San Jose, for example. San Jose had a
start bad.
Tampa.
Yeah,
they all Ottawa. Look at Ottawa, like that's just the way.
Vegas was a freak, and that GM grossly took advantage of the rules and of the situation. Which
it was George
he didn't cheat or anything.
Duh.
Yeah.
It was George McPhee. Did we expect anything less? We saw what he did with Washington. Come on.
One last question, Ashley. Are you going to be the coach or the GM of the New York Giants?
Both.
They need you.
I'm pulling a Belichick. Let me just say that I am just like, I made that Facebook post on Monday or Sunday night. I'm like, I hope I wake up to the dumpster fire, like the dumpster being lit on fire, and it has been lit on fire and then some. And I'm like,
So
bring it.
the funny thing is, the coach survived Black Monday, which is when all the coaches get fired. So he thought he was safe. So he starts running off his mouth like, I need more power around here. And then they're like,
and then John Mara was like, bye.
Get out, bye.
John Mara pulled a move that his dad used to pull back in the day, and I was like, I've been waiting 15 years for John Mara to do that.
I like that the GM, they said, you know what, we're gonna fire you anyway, so why don't you just retire? He's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna retire.
Well, I'm gonna say this: they gave Gettleman that respect because he was there for almost 20 years previously as a scout. I mean, he worked under.
So he did do some good things.
He worked under Ernie Accorsi and then Jerry Reese. And I mean, Ernie Accorsi is held in like super high regard in Giants world. So, I mean, he actually did a lot of great things as a scout for the Giants.
The Giants are a complete mess. Do you get rid of Daniel Jones?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And what's sad is I think your Steelers are going to get Kenny Pickett, but I want him.
You can have Kenny Pickett. He has small hands.
That's fine. I want the Pickett slide in Jersey because he's a homegrown boy. He can handle it. He can put on his big boy pants and handle the New York media.
Kenny Pickett is older than some of the people on this podcast right now. Let me just put it that way. But anyway,
yeah, I mean,
sorry, Jen, to bore you with football talk. It was just lots of football stuff going on. So anyway,
well,
right.
I got so excited that I bought myself non-alcoholic beer last night. Okay.
Hey.
Because I've missed beer, and I'm like, I need beer.
How is non-alcoholic beer tasting?
Oh, I miss Yingling so much.
Do they make non-alcoholic Yingling?
No.
Oh, that'd be nice.
I'm gonna put a petition in for it.
There you go.
So I've been rolling with the Heineken 0.0, which for the record is the best one out of the bunch.
Okay. My friend, she used to drink stout, like alcohol. Her doctor said it was okay if she had like a half pint once in a while through her pregnancy, but it had to be stout.
Ooh,
Interesting.
I was told I can have red wine once in a while, but the sugar headaches, no thanks.
Wow.
I mean, they used to drink back in the 40s and 50s and smoke, but better safe than sorry.
My son is going to need enough help as it is once he's here. I don't need to cause any more problems.
I can't wait. I'm sure baby Stamkos Kucherov is going to love whatever you put in your body. So.
And I might move to Florida, so I'll be there to train him.
There you go. Oh my goodness. Little baby skates. The baby will skate before it can walk.
If I'm down in time. 3 months old. Let's go.
Give me time. I've got 5 more months of dealing with this.
All right.
It'll be good.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. As always, this was awesome.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.